My husband and I live in a suburban neighborhood in a nice part of town. He's a doctor, GP, and I'm a teacher, so we live quite comfortably. A few years back, on Halloween, I was home alone with our baby girl. I was on maternity leave at the time. My husband, Martin, had been great since the baby was born. He had helped out as much as he could. In fact, he'd barely left my side. But he had a work conference that he couldn't get out of, so he had to leave us alone for the night. We were all stocked up on candy ready for the trick-or-treaters, and we'd decorated the house with ghosts and ghouls and a couple of jack-o'-lanterns. I watched TV on the couch with the baby in my arms, waiting for the knocks on the door. Kids started arriving from about 6. They looked so cute in their costumes. The really young ones had their parents with them. We had a brief chat, I gave them candy, and off they went. I knew most of them because they were local. By 7:30, everything had died down and I was nearly out of candy. The baby had slept through the whole thing. Then at about 8:30, there was a knock on the door. When I opened it, there was a whole bunch of kids standing there in masks. There were about 8 of them in total, and they were much older than everyone else who had knocked. I'd say around 16 years old. "Trick or treat lady," one of them said. Their energy seemed chaotic, and they were laughing like I'd missed an in-joke. Apart from the masks, they were in normal clothes. I emptied the last of the candy into their bag. "Is that it?" the leader said. He was wearing a scream mask. One of the people at the back of the group seemed to be trying to peer into my house. I told them that was it, and they left. I locked the door behind me. I was pretty unsettled by their energy, so I messaged a group chat that some of the neighbors are in, telling them about the group of lads. Later that night, I woke up to use the bathroom. The baby was asleep beside me, so I walked lightly to the main bathroom rather than use our own ensuite. As I was tiptoeing along the landing, I heard a noise below. For a second, I froze. Then I steadied my breath and listened in. I heard footsteps, more than one pair. Then I heard whispering. I didn't know what to do. I just wished my husband was home. I was panicking again, but I had to stay calm. And I really needed to pee. And then, of course, my baby. I had to protect my baby. I tiptoed back into my bedroom. She was still fast asleep. I grabbed my phone and messaged the group chat asking if anyone was still awake. Seconds dragged by, then Tina, who lived across the street, replied saying she was still up. I told her someone was in my house and she needed to call 911. About a minute later, there was a banging on the door, and suddenly I heard footsteps, lots of them, darting out of the house. The noise woke my baby and she started crying. Then there was another knock. Surely the police couldn't have been that fast. After a few seconds of silence, I went downstairs to open the door. It was Eric, Tina's husband. He was standing there in his pajamas, holding a golf club. It would have been a comical sight if I wasn't shaking with fear. I told him I was okay and thanked him for coming over. A few minutes later, the police arrived and searched the place. It seemed they'd got in and out through the back door, which they'd forced open. Luckily, they hadn't gotten away with much, a few bits of jewelry and my laptop. I told the police about the strange lads that had come to the door earlier. They agreed that it could well have been them, but the chances of picking them up on Halloween were pretty slim. I didn't tell my husband what had happened until he got home. He hit the roof when he found out. He was so angry that he wasn't there to protect me, and he bought Eric a bottle of whiskey to say thanks for having our back. I told him not to worry. After all, things could have been a lot worse. It was my first Halloween in my new apartment, far away from my hometown and family. I resided in a cozy one-bedroom apartment on the ground floor. I had moved for work, but I wanted to buy somewhere rather than rent, so my parents had helped with the deposit, making it possible for me to live independently. It was Halloween. I'd not long moved in, so I didn't have any plans or parties to attend. The clock struck 11 p.m. and I was engrossed in my third Halloween movie of the night. I nearly jumped out of my skin when there was a knock at my door, a sign of too many horror films, perhaps. I hesitated, wondering who could be at the door so late. Halloween night was likely over for the trick-or-treaters. I had a feeling it might just be some late-night pranksters trying to play ding-dong ditch, so I paused for a moment before glancing at the front porch through the windows. As I suspected, no one was there. I cursed them and returned to my spot on the couch. Just as I got comfortable, a second knock rapped on the door. Unwilling to get up again, I yelled, "Get lost," and that's when the knocking turned into a pounding. I was angry now and leaped up from the couch. I flung the door open, ready to confront the mischief makers, but once again there was no one there. I slipped on my shoes and decided to step outside to investigate. I searched the surrounding bushes, checked behind my car, and even glanced across the street, but there was no sign of anyone. Frustrated, I returned indoors, double-locked the door, and proceeded to lock my bedroom door for good measure. But the sporadic knocking on the front door continued, and it was getting on my nerves. Even over the TV, the pounding was starting to be deafening, and it was unsettling too. I contemplated calling the police to get rid of the persistent pranksters, but I was worried that it would escalate the situation, possibly leading to my house getting vandalized. The pounding persisted for more than half an hour, making me increasingly uneasy. I theorized that these kids might be filming a YouTube prank and were determined to capture my reaction. I refused to give them the satisfaction, and my resolve to ignore them solidified. Exhausted in the end, I dozed off with the TV still on. I awoke to the knocking once again, and I checked the clock. It was 2 a.m. How were these kids still at it? I turned off the TV and listened closely. My heart skipped a beat as I realized the knocking was not at the front door, but at my bedroom door. They knew I was awake now and were attempting to force their way in. I frantically searched my room for something to use as a weapon. Realizing that the situation was dire, I had an idea. It was a long shot, but it was all I had. I turned on the receiver to my speaker system, plugged in my phone, launched the YouTube app, and played a gunshot sound effect. The realistic gunshot echoed throughout the room. I paused the video after the first shot and yelled, "That was a warning shot. Leave now or I won't hesitate to shoot you in the head." Miraculously, it worked. I heard 2 sets of footsteps rapidly retreating over my hardwood floors and out the front door. I waited for a moment before opening my bedroom door and peeking outside. The intruders were gone, but my front door was wide open. I quickly closed it, called the police, and that's where my terrifying night finally came to an end.